I wanted to share a little history in our family, our marriage, that might help you. Because in 1979, when Kathy and I were married, it was a unique time. The children started coming. Well, the first one, 16 months after our wedding day, Paul came along. And pretty consistently, right after that, all 14 of them, with the girl coming number 11, and then three more boys. So 10 boys, the girl, three more boys. And during the first couple of decades, we didn't have the culture. There were enough bad things happening in the culture in terms of entertainment or the general fabric of the culture. And we talked to so many other couples, parents who really wanted to raise their kids in a way to be clean from the world and all the pollution, all the temptations, all the things that wear you down. And we're already weak, fallen people on our own. But then all these things in the media, and then of course the internet eventually came around. Well, thank God, God put on our hearts very early that for ourselves, our own minds, and the right things to be on your mind as someone who is supposed to be representing Jesus and influencing others and being parents, especially the amazing privilege of raising someone from brand new out of the oven, and you get to be the parents. Just think how official it was looking at your parents when you were little, looking at your aunts and uncles, maybe at family reunions. And now you're in that role, if you're a parent, or if not, you might have influence in some other way. But one thing we wanted to do, of course, not let them fall into the cesspool of all the bad things that were happening in the 70s. I mean, by that time, the Hollywood code had gone out the door. And it was in effect from about the 30s to the early 60s, and it affected everything that was made in Hollywood, and TV shows were included in that. So when that went out the door, the 60s had a tremendous revolution in the wrong direction. Prayer was taken out of the school in 62. There were just so many things that unfolded. There were 3 assassinations in the years following that. All the craziness in our culture, the unrest, riots, drug use. You look at the test scores, pregnancies out of wedlock, sadness, suicide. And it's because we created a vacuum and these other things rushed into our culture. And now, as you welcome children, you have to make sure you don't have a vacuum. If you take away something, in that sense, you took away something good. You know, all the prayer in the schools, they pulled shows off of the air. There was something in the 60s called the Rural Purge. Did you know that? Have you ever watched one of the old classics TV channels and seen all the rural shows? The down home, they honor family life. They sometimes you'll have 3 generations there. Or you would see the Andy Griffith Show, and there was just so many of them that were set in a rural, kind of a family rooted, very rooted setting. They had values like honoring elders and being responsible. Sure, there would be situation comedies and all sorts of lessons learned, but it always wound up that truth reigned. That's what happened with the Hollywood Code. It insisted that movies and TV shows would come out with a certain common sense, clear-cut message that would build in you. I mean, why even be engaged in making media unless you want to give people something? You know, that's why a lot of these people, especially look at the Disney studio, Walt Disney himself was raised in a Christian environment in the heartland of our country in Missouri, and he wanted to inject that into his stories, honoring the country, those who had sacrificed for this beautiful country. So I'll just tell you our story, and I just want to encourage you that if you're in a situation now with kids or grandkids, there's a way to not only avoid the bad, but we have found just millions of resources and ways to build up what is good. Now, thank God there's an internet, but I'm going to go back to how we developed it before there was an internet, because our raising of the kids preceded the internet by about almost 25 years. And we already had found other resources. For one, well, I don't want to get ahead of my story, but I just wanted to say all the stuff that we're supposed to avoid as Christians, the impurity. We all mostly think of like the sexual compromises in our culture, but there have been all sorts of other ones. Just lack of meaning, a deadness, lack of working hard or filling your day, a lack of self-respect, a lack of connectedness in families. So what I just wanted to do is go back and tell you some of the things we learned. We kept checking in with God, His Word, and with what worked, with horse sense, common sense, and we just built little by little. I just wanted to tell you some of the things that seemed to work, and they weren't things that I invented. They were things that we saw working in the lives of others, in the pages of Scripture, and just by obeying God's truth. When you put together a kit, and you follow the instructions and just trust that the manufacturer knew what he was doing, uh, it leads to a complete, beautiful result. And what we did was decide not to lean unto our own understanding, but to just do the right thing in every minute, but not to get too scared of the world. Like, oh no, we gotta totally take the kids out of everything. We have to, this evil world. Oh, because by the time the 70s came along and we were having our first son came in 1980, the culture had changed so much. There was this rural purge in the 60s, late 60s. In the 70s, there were so many cutting edge, woke, just really horrible, confusing things. It's almost like the lifting of all the Hollywood code. Let me just go back. The Hollywood Code ran basically from the mid 30s to the mid 60s. It was basically those who made movies or TV series basically had to follow the Ten Commandments or honor the things that were just right. Honor some of the biggest things: marriage, women, a high value on women. They were kind of on a pedestal. They were to be cherished. Abstinence until marriage. Respect of kids toward adults. It's hard to believe as you watch the old Leave It to Beaver series. Both boys are saying yes, sir, to their father. It's just the woman who is a homemaker is honored. She's not just somewhere off to the side, but she's considered almost like a saint, and grandmas are considered. Everybody learns from the elders. Now in our culture, a lot of times the old timers, I'll be 70 in April. I mean, I don't get disrespected, but I just know that that it's a very youth-based culture, because youth do know more about the media, the internet. They've had time on their hands. They haven't had to work as hard, so they lose. It doesn't have to hurt our feelings if sometimes people overlook us, because I feel sorry. I literally feel sorry. I have enough security. I don't need to be honored. But I know in making these videos, it's less likely that these are going to be hot and cool to go viral among the young. This is going to be there might be some among the young who are very solid in their views and do watch these. Let me know if you're one of these. And this isn't meant to be just someone sitting out, just sitting out on a rocking chair at the front porch talking about how the world used to be good. It used to be this way. It always had sin in it. Our culture did change dramatically, though. I kind of feel as if God let me be born in this era, knowing that I would be doing these videos at age 69 and a half, because I was born in 56. And it was easy to find high quality TV. There were only 3 networks, but everything had to be, just according to the code. If you look back at the movies of the 50s and the 60s, for example, every movie, if you look at the list of all the movies that were in theaters, everyone they look like just almost, people would say almost corny now. They have honor. They mention God. They have families praying around the table. They might have a grandpa involved who is honored and respected, or grandma, or grandma who is in the kitchen teaching her granddaughter to cook, or grandma and grandpa are right, or mom and dad are right. Not perfect, because they balanced it real well. For example, in the series Leave It to Beaver, it's very well balanced, because Ward and June make mistakes and they acknowledge those to the kids, but they're not. There's a sense of respect, mutual respect all around. And well, just to get back, when we raised a family, we were very poor. We really were. And and plus TV had changed so much. So anything that we would watch on network TV, there were just 3 channels, and there was no such thing as a VHS tape or VCRs. We would just have to just go out to parks. I'd tell stories every night, bedtime stories. Once we actually went to the library and rented The Sound of Music on reel to reel, and we had to pay 50 cents for that, and we had to be on a waiting list. And when we got that, this was back when the kids were young, in the mid 80s or whatever, we somehow got hold of a projector and projected it onto a wall in this big old fixer-upper house that we had purchased, that It reminds me of the one in It's a Wonderful Life. And I remember the people before had painted the wall of that foyer where we projected it a lime green. And it took years before we could afford to do anything, put colors up that we wanted. But it was fun being underdogs and welcoming these children and trying to raise them in a good kind of bubble in which they're living unto God and serving each other and appreciating family. But we were very fiercely determined not to isolate them. We wanted to embrace the world because we really had an evangelistic flame and a love for people. So our version of homeschooling and being family based was very out in the open. It was never a fortress mentality. And even to this day, and we continue to make the videos reaching out. I just love people. Kathy loves people. I watch our family go on a trip or meet new people in the business world, and I see the love flowing out. It's like Jesus. I'm so proud. I mean, I think justifiably, because they're giving out love. Their version of the Christian life isn't just hiding from the bad. We're not supposed to be raising our kids to be ourselves, to be kind of overwhelmed by the evil in the world and just think, oh, I'm going to just hunker down. I got to avoid that. Oh, I got to avoid that. But you can have a big vacuum. It's all empty. So we found ways to fill it up. And one of the neatest things that God just did on a very slight budget, well, the only way we could watch one of these old classic movies was by renting The Sound of Music for 50 cents during that era. But maybe 5 years later, in the early 90s, there was such a thing as there was cable TV. And we found enough, somehow dug deep in our pockets. I was just working at my father-in-law's factory while I went to school to build a business later, and making at various times $7.50 an hour and $9.50, at maybe $10.50. And somehow we eked out enough to get a subscription to a couple of these channels. One was classic movies from the old days that we'd never seen, and also the old Disney classic cartoons and some old movies. And they were all made, you couldn't find a thing in them, very rarely, something that didn't line up with the golden rule, the heartbeat of God and character and family and goodness and honoring your neighbor. I mean, there would be things in there that we'd steer around if it was too. Sometimes in the Disney things there'd be magic, or it'd be playful magic. Sometimes it'd be silly little story devices to, and every family has to kind of weigh that. But it wasn't sorcery or darkness. And what really excited me was on the Classics TV channel, we began to be able to, we found out what a VCR was. And so we began to, since, wow, you're allowed to record off of TV. So we recorded the old classic movies on VHS tapes. And our kids were raised in an environment of almost being movie history students. Because of the dawn of these classic TV channels, you could see around the clock old classic movies, silent films. Basically, it's like a living lesson in cinematography and filmmaking. Because with the dawn of these classics channels, normal folks like us were able to probably see more movies than anybody, even the most dedicated film student paying huge tuition, would have been able to do over the past decades. Because a lot of these things were caught up in limbo. They were legally, they hadn't even been taken off the shelves of the old studios, or they hadn't been legally cleared to air on TV. But when the idea of cable TV came around, a couple of channels said, hey, they worked it all out so they could present these. And since it's free and on the air, you can, just like you can record a ball game, we recorded those movies. And we eventually, quietly, I would have in my office, since I did a lot of my work in my office, had a flexible schedule so that I could be with the kids in our businesses. And I would just see ahead, oh, these movies are going to be on, oh, they're going to have Shirley Temple movies. Now, if you would have told me when I was a teenager, you're going to be loving Shirley Temple movies, I would have thought, what? She's just a little curly top dancing cute little girl from the 30s. She is, but the stories are very, very highly done, and she's just one character in a great drama, great story, and great production values. And plus, by that time I had kids. So just the idea of like acquiring all of these, and then acquiring the Westerns where there would be a sense of right and a wrong. A lot of good ones with Jimmy Stewart, of course, John Wayne, Alan Ladd, Randolph Scott. But Jimmy Stewart, he has to be one of our favorite actors. And all of the romantic comedies or dramas, he did such a great job. I mean, we're thinking sometimes of creating a feature on Fam Team about just a movie review night or something like that, because we collected over 3,000 movies just by recording them. Eventually, when DVDs came out, we put those movies onto DVDs. When digital storage came about, we put them on digital storage. So what? Can I tell you something really neat? Well, now our family of 16, they are extremely extroverted. They're traveling all over. I mean, they're not hidden at all, but they're like experts of the golden age of Hollywood. They can tell you all about Buster Keaton, Harold Lloyd, two of the big pioneers in silent films, Laurel and Hardy, all the way up through the 30s, and then the establishment of the code, and then all the wartime 40s when people were not afraid to weep and pray, and the whole country was more in a hearted sense of closeness. And you see a lot of movies in which people go to church, pray around the dinner table. There's a picture of the son who's away at war up on the wall, and it's just some beautiful wartime movies. And then we get into the beautiful musicals of some in the 40s, but the 50s, even in early 60s. And anyway, we had the privilege of, by the time now, after decades of filming these, and we would have a movie night here every night right before prayer time. Our family would gather. We had, thank God, at the old place and here at this house, we had a place where we could all gather. And so we would watch old movies, maybe a silent film, maybe most of them were the good old black and white movies of the 30s, 40s, and parts of the 50s. And then some of the color comedies. And it like a brick wall, when that code went out in the early 60s, hardly anything was really good after that. You can search and find since the 1960s, but you really have to search and find. But we would watch that, and everyone became very familiar with these romantic comedies, the dramas, the film noirs, the silent films, the musicals. So many. I mean, they can answer questions right now. Could give almost like a little conference on just their favorite actors. A lot of the character actors behind the scenes, we've gotten to know, and we even met a few of them and or corresponded. And I just wanted to encourage you, if you're a parent or a grandparent or anybody who has influence, or even just for your own, what you put into your mind. There is, in addition to a lot of new good stuff that's now coming because there is an internet, you can find really good stuff on YouTube, and you got to just pick and choose. And people have podcasts, they have chats like this. But I just wanted to say that there are thousands and thousands of movies, and you can access them through some of these cable, they don't even call it cable anymore, but dish or whatever. And you can access these channels, and you can watch them on demand, or you can just record them if you want. But what's kind of neat is my parents are in their early 90s, and they grew up in this era of the golden era. They were born in 1933, but they, of course, couldn't afford to go to the movie house all the time. And plus, you could almost take for granted that every movie was pretty good in those days. Everything was following the code. So if you had 2 theaters in town, well, maybe every month each theater would have 8 good movies, because there would be a double feature with usually a B movie first, and they could almost take it for granted, and they weren't able to watch them all. But because it didn't cost anything to us, it doesn't cost anything to us, but there you had to pay, and for expensive popcorn once you're in the theater. And so, to make a long story short, we're introducing my parents, who were in their early 90s, to a lot of the movies that were made in their era. Like last night, there was a movie made in 1948. My dad entered high school in 47, I believe. And so he would have been a sophomore. And it was kind of that soda fountain era, and kind of real innocent. It was called A Date with Judy. And I've watched that. I first saw it maybe 30 years ago with Jane Powell, a 16-year-old Elizabeth Taylor. It's just a really good film, very well done in color, good music. And they're just such an innocence. They have just enough naughtiness or enough temptation to kind of have it mean something when the girl decides to be good. And in those days, the sweet girl was extolled. In this case, one of the girls is serenaded by a bunch of sincere young men outside of her window, and she looks angelically beautiful, and little Jane Powell. And she's the same one who starred in Seven Brides for Seven Brothers. But if you're raising kids of any age, or even you just want to have common entertainment with your adult children when they come over, or just for you and your husband, or just yourself and your friends, if you're ever interested, I mean, we God must have prepared us for a reason, because we have watched over these 30, 40 years just about everything that was ever made since the film began. It's become like a labor of love, almost a constant film class. We're constantly discussing the pace of certain films. Did they drag that scene out? Why did they drag that scene out so long? Maybe it still works for me, though. Maybe they just wanted a calm pace. And so we exchange ideas, and I think God wanted us to go to a film school right here in the Midwest, sort of a Hollywood of the Midwest. About 25 years ago, I had that sense come on my heart, Hollywood of the Midwest. We hadn't moved out here yet into this country place, and we hadn't begun to do all of the things we're doing in media to this extent. We did start with a Safe at Home TV show in 98, and that's basically something like this. And but then in 2000 we started FamTeam. It'll be 25 years ago next month that we started FamTeam.com. Now right now we're using the FamTeam YouTube channel and Safe at Home YouTube channel, but we want to revive FamTeam.com so it could have, like I since 2000 I've been writing a daily just entry, Dad's diary, Dad's journal, whatever you might call it, just a few paragraphs each day. To sort of, some people have said, oh, I like to read that. I like to be like a fly on the wall. What decisions did you make? What challenges did you face? So there's a thought that we could someday release that if we have time to expand FamTeam.com again, brush it off, as maybe its 25th anniversary birthday will inspire us to do that. But I just wanted to say some specific films these old films, they have a way of uniting the family, because everybody was excited about, we'd say prayer time, running through the rooms of that house behind me and through the rooms and hallways of the house where we used to live. And we lived there for the first roughly 25 years. And even now, when some of the guys who aren't living here, I mean, just last night, Paul was here, and he doesn't live here, but he was watching that movie I talked to you about from 1948 with Jane Powell and Elizabeth Taylor, and he loved it. He and I were talking about it, and we look things up on the phone. It's almost like a class we're in to find out, oh, how did this, because IMDb.com, International Movie Database, I guess is what it stands for, database. It tells everything about every actor and what other movies they were in. It's just you can learn about how they were raised, all sorts of anecdotal information. And I can tell that God has put us through a course. And I knew in the late 70s, God was calling me to do, but at that time it was mainly writing, because this other media didn't exist. And then I did some books. Actually was asked by a prominent publishing house, Christian publishing house, to do books on, two different publishing houses had me do 3 books interviewing Christian athletes, mainly Major League Baseball players, but also I call it 1 or 2 Olympic athletes, and 2 Olympic athletes, and 1 professional soccer player, NBA guy, a few NFL, women's golf. What am I forgetting? But just basically would interview them, mostly in person, but some by distant phone. And they just also, I was asked to do a radio show back in about 1980, The Man Behind the Uniform. And then I was just asked to do a lot of media opportunities or talk at churches. And when the family came along, I wanted to put the family first. I had a chance to go heavy into this and really thrive, but I really felt, and God, I've told you, and I wanted to put the God and the family first. So I told God, we're going to have some non-negotiables between Kathy and I. We had come to that conclusion. We want her to be at home. Now she'll be a PhD in homemaking and of course homeschooling, and she was. I take my hat off. If I had one on, I'd take it off. To you women and those who have raised children, because you don't have a lot of praise and applause during those long periods of discomfort, pain in pregnancies, post-pregnancy, raising the children. It's just not in the last several decades, it wasn't glorified as much. These old shows did glorify motherhood a lot, and just so I wanted to give you a round of applause if you've walked that road, no matter what, without a lot of people cheering along the way. But anyway, we're cheering you. But I just wanted to say that it's been God knew what He was doing, because that theme of writing books or being called, even though I didn't go hot and heavy because I could have gone really heavily into the ministry, writing more books, speaking in more churches. I just took a turn, said, I'm going to put the family first. God, if you still want to use that ministry, media kind of gift or calling that I feel like I have, will you do it even with the family? You'll have to figure out a way because I feel like I'm obeying you by putting family first. And it's hard to earn a living. And I had to work hard to do that. So over the years, though, I remember once after maybe 16, 17 years of marriage, maybe you had 10 children by then, uh, I felt the stirrings of doing more media. And to confirm it, this woman who hears from God a lot, but who didn't know me, saw me once across at a vineyard service. We were part of the vineyard, and we would pray. We were part of the ministry team after, the service. We would lay hands on people. But she just saw me out of nowhere and said, she saw a banner over me that said multimedia, multifaceted ministry. And that was exactly what I had been doing already in life, but was somewhat on pause because of raising the children. And it was almost like from that point on, that was opening up the floodgates again because the kids were starting to get older. Paul got his license, and we had a little more freedom for me to start doing some media again. And we scraped together some money and got together and got 2 cameras and a mixer that I could operate with my feet. So I could do a show called the Safe at Home Show. It started in April of '98. And I could control this camera and then turn to this camera. And I would just tell stories about what God had been doing, or we would have interviews with Major League ball players. We would show footage of some of our trips. It's a lot like we're doing now if you look at the blend of the Fam Team YouTube channel and this YouTube channel. But I just wanted to say that I think God uses media. And I had originally, before I got into my biography, I hope, tell me if that was too much off the mark. I need honest feedback. I had intended to give you a whole lot of names of movies and suggestions that we have really liked. And let me know if, but anyway, I'll go on. I'll try to steer that way now, but let me know if I talk too much about our own history. And hey, by the way, don't be bashful. This is a new Safe at Home YouTube channel. Once they get going, people start commenting and then they bounce back, they comment after each other, to see each other's comments. But when it's new, you sort of like you're the only one. So don't be afraid. I'd like it to become a conversation place, sort of a place where you can sit around the Cracker Barrel. We see that company going through a little controversy, trying to modernize and kicking out some things that I think were beautiful. But anyway, just put it this way, sitting around a campfire or sitting around a family fireplace and just being able to be honest. I want this to be a sense of family in the comments area here. And so please, you can be a pioneer. You don't have to wait till other people do it. And you can share the needs or make a comment. And we'll pray that God would add more people to it helps when there's a bigger crowd. You don't stick out so much. You don't feel like I'm questioning too much or commenting too much. But I don't mind if you comment a lot to help get us jump started. But can I just finish what I was going to say? Well, the movies I can recommend a whole lot of them. There are a lot of comedies, a lot of romantic comedies, a lot of combination drama, romantic comedies. It's just musicals, just so many things. There were so many clever, wise people, so many good Disney movies, the cartoons, so many good ones in the 30s and 40s and 50s. Some of those silly symphonies, they went to so much trouble for those. They have a series of American heroes that the Walt Disney Studios did, featuring Paul Bunyan and Benjamin Franklin and whatever. It's very a fun way to learn, high quality. Those guys didn't have computers. They went to the Disney studio, and I guess literally had to ink each panel to make Donald Duck run or whatever. So you look at some of the animated movies that they made over the decades. They're just such high quality. One of the things I miss about media, since they kind of got more woke and they kicked out the golden rules, the 10 Commandments, so to speak, the Hollywood Code, whatever you call it, that they got lost. A lot of the heroes in the modern movies from the time they kicked it out, look at the 60s, man, they went from the code being in effect and things in the early part of the decade being Sound of Music or The Parent Trap or Innocent Thing, not long after Ben-Hur, all the way to horrible things that put through. I don't know when nudity was up on the screen, but I mean, you just couldn't go to movies. I had no desire, and a lot of real restless liberal people, people into drugs, people trying to overturn the culture, and it just happened so quickly. And ironically, a lot of these people now, as they get to be my age, these rockers who have burned themselves out on drugs and sex, drugs, and rock and roll, and multiple relationships, they're actually many turning to Jesus. They're like little kids. They're saying, "Now what? I've reached the end of my life, and that didn't make me happy." I heard about one of the Beatles, the late John Lennon, calling into one of the Christian shows and just asking humbly about things. And I'm sure that the person who was on the staff there, the answering the phone, prayed and told him about Jesus. I hear that George Harrison, I don't know how many Beatles fans, who was always such a quiet Beatle, and he got into the Eastern religions for a while, did an album or two or more about that, but then at the end of his life became a Christian. So that's beautiful. There's evidence from Ray Comfort out there on the internet if you want to see that. So it just the people who kind of ironically took our culture in the leftward direction or into confusion and made right not seem clear cut and wrong not seem clear cut. Ironically, after doing a lot of the damage, creating music and advocating, just hey, well, let it be, love the one you're with, just do this, just kind of relax and just feel. It's all about feelings, and if it feels good, do it. And who can say it's situational ethics? Who can say that there are actual objective ethics? It's situational. If we love each other, we don't have to be married. We can just, and they're running the show instead of saying, hey, I was born here and God created this whole beautiful universe. He created the ability for me to exist, the ability for me to even procreate and have children. We can't be messing around and bring a child into an uncommitted relationship, not being married. Also, we can't abort. We can't have free sex and just abort. And so there's a wonderful revival and renewal going on now. You can look and search for anything online. You can find all sorts of people talking along these lines. And I'm just one little voice. One benefit I think I have, one thing I don't have is the flash and excitement of maybe some 30-year-old hunk or something with his hat backwards and looking cool, or I don't have the fast music or the peppy, but I just am myself. Kathy just is herself. And so I just wanted to let you know that when I share these things, I want to pass them on to the next generation, not only my kids, but to anyone out there who's building a life, building a family. I'm trying to basically, one of the themes we talk about behind the scenes is just tell the people, how did you this, or how did you do that? Just simply, like, you're in court and you're being sworn in, and just say, this is what we did for that. Oh, we were concerned about the culture gobbling them up and having them watch modern movies. We also didn't want to, and music gobbling them up, and the whole cultural habits of the way you approach everything, and just being more lazy, more of a victim mentality. But then we thought, if we just say, no, that's naughty, ooh, that's evil, that's bad, ooh, no. But if you don't replace it with something, so our determined zeal was to replace it and make it more fun to be in our family and to love Jesus as a member of our family, him being the most, in a respectful way, the most joy-giving, life-filled member of the family, and the Holy Spirit being associated with joy and freshness, like a hot day, you're out in the field working, and you come into a pool, and the Holy Spirit is just refreshing you and giving you strength and just helping you to get through your day. So I really look back and I see it worked. God did it for us. All we did was blueprint it out. We're not going to join with the world, the wide road that leads to destruction, as we see in the scriptures. But we're not going to be on some kind of narrow road that is so easy to stereotype that you become a walking SNL skit on Saturday night. You become a Saturday Night Live skit, like the church lady skit that they did years and years ago. You want to become some of the most healthy, vibrant, confident, successful people around, because you want to show that being with a Christian, you're winners, not loser. You're the head, not the tail. But not in the sense of haughtiness where you're going around. In fact, your stuff that you do should speak for you. Your history, your record should speak for you. That's what they say in sports. A youngster coming in might hit a home run and make a big celebration for himself as he goes around the bases. A lot of times, the old timers in the dugout will take him aside and say, "Hey, buddy, don't let us see that again. That's not how it's done here. You got to act like you've been here before. Act like you've been there before. And so now, a little happy celebration by a youthful person is okay in the right vein. You kind of feel the difference. But I wanted to tell you, maybe in a coming video, would any of you like me to tell you some of the specific shows, the comedies, the dramas, the musicals, the silent films, the TV series that really just were like milk and honey for my family in terms of entertainment, and it really merged us together. The blended, I'm born in '56, and all the way down to our youngest, David, who was born in the early 2000s. It unites us watching these shows. And just I could go into specifics. I didn't have as much time here. I just wanted to say, though, if you have an instinct as a person or as a couple or parents or grandparents taking care of kids, don't be afraid that you'll be considered mean or unhip or unwoke, or you'll lose somebody by frankly saying, that's ridiculous. That looks like junk. Why do we even have to go there? We don't even have to have that on. We don't have to, let's raise our standard. Why have that on TV? And if you can do that with a confident attitude of replacing it, and not just saying, hey, we're going to replace it, but like having a lifestyle of replacement where you literally make being with you and going on family trips, or we go out to parks, make it cool, almost a sense of suspense or mystery. Always be a step ahead of the kids or the people even if you're not kids anymore, always have one or two aces in the hole with God to make things fun. Give real generous love to people. Give smiles. Give funny stories. Give when people are over, give them generous amounts of food. Have a clean house. Just there's so many ways you can basically condition people to say, wow, I can't see anything I don't like about living for Christ or living for Jesus Christ, because we didn't have any money, but somehow we were able to go on family trips for 25 years now. The last 25 years, the first 20 years of our marriage, it was hard. The first 21 years. But this fall, it'll be 25-year anniversary of family trips, pretty big trips. Like this fall, we're going to go on a major one to the Northeast and hopefully go over through Maine again and see Vermont and, New Hampshire and all that on the way, and Connecticut, Massachusetts. But then we're going to go into Maine, a lot of different parts of it we love, northern Maine, western Maine, and along the coast with the lighthouses, Acadia, and then cross over into Prince Edward Island and Nova Scotia. And so our whole family went to Prince Edward Island in 2007. Well, 10 years after that, Kathy and I went to Prince Edward Island and Nova Scotia. No one in the family has been able to see Nova Scotia. So for some members who are able to make that part of this trip, Nova Scotia will be the first time. I'm privileged to share it with them. Just want to say, keep loving God, love your family, love your spouse, be committed. The feelings will follow. Just commit to love. Wherever you're assigned, love. Paul says those who have been converted, stay where you're planted. If you've been circumcised, then stay circumcised. If you're not, no need to get circumcised. It's all about in the heart. What is a spiritual circumcision? I just turned it on for some air. And I just say, wherever you are, it's a good chance that God put you there for a strategic purpose to touch certain lives. And I just really love you all, and I really like the people in this group, and you're on the same wavelength, many of you, as Kathy and I are, and it shows that we have the same spirit, because even we know we have different tastes and different ways we do things. There's enough common ground that we feel natural together, and I can tell that when I receive these messages and comments. And I often receive private messages because it's a little more lengthy or personal. So somebody will say, oh, this situation is now getting better, that we prayed about 3 months ago. So it's very encouraging to me. Please pray as I develop this Safe at Home channel. Can I tell you something brand new that we're thinking about doing? Group discussions like they have on Talk TV. You might see it on Newsmax or Fox or different OAN or different panel discussions. And so I was just talking yesterday in the room right behind me on the corner of the house there, right by the porch. I was just talking to Paul and John, the two oldest, about going back to an idea that the two of us and Kathy and Seth and a few others had planned, of just sitting on our living room furniture, the place we have our Sunday services, and just chatting about certain things, chatting about some of the things going on in the culture and in our lives, answering some questions that have come in. So keep praying for us as we develop. It won't all be just Dad talking here. It won't be all just the things you see on Fam Team. There's a lot more that we haven't had time to release, a lot of little flavors. So we're right now, just starting. We'll see you later, and God bless you. We love you. Let us know what's on your mind, what needs help, what needs prayer. Bye.